My name is Katherine Wells, and at 34 years old, I thought I knew how corporate America worked. After 7 years of dedication at Tech Fusion Global, I spent all night saving our system before the Pentagon presentation. My quiet competence had earned respect and promised a promotion that would change my life. Instead, between 8:04 a.m. and 10:17 a.m., everything I had worked for was stolen from beneath me, along with a $700 million contract. Before I tell you how quickly your career can crumble, let me know where you are watching from, and hit subscribe if you have ever had your hard work credited to someone else. The clock on my laptop read 11:43 p.m. when the first critical error appeared in our system. The prototype cybersecurity platform we had spent 18 months developing for the Pentagon presentation was showing cascading failures throughout the authentication module. My shoulders tensed as I realized what this meant. Our 10:00 a.m. presentation was less than 11 hours away, and the centerpiece of our proposal was breaking down. I had joined Tech Fusion Global right after completing my engineering degree at MIT. 7 years of 60-hour weeks solving problems that others deemed impossible, and slowly climbing from junior developer to senior systems architect. This Pentagon contract wasn't just another project. At $700 million, it represented the largest potential deal in company history and would provide cybersecurity infrastructure for critical defense systems across multiple branches of the military. The notification sound on my phone pulled my attention away from the sea of error messages. Any update on the auth module crash? Pentagon team arrives at 9:30. Harrington is freaking out, texted Diane from product management. I took a deep breath before responding. Working on it. Looks like a conflict in the latest security patch. We'll fix before morning. If anyone can save this, it's you, Kate. This is why you're getting that director position after tomorrow's meeting. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The director of systems architecture position had been dangled before me for months. With my technical skills and institutional knowledge, I was the obvious choice. The promotion would mean a 60% salary increase, a team of my own, and finally a seat at the decision-making table. Just doing my job, I replied, turning back to the screen. The office was nearly empty at this hour. The cleaning staff had come and gone. The only sounds were the gentle hum of the server room and the clicking of my keyboard as I dove deeper into the code. At 1:15 a.m., I found the root cause. A seemingly minor update to one of our third-party security libraries had created a timing vulnerability in our authentication sequence. The fix would require rewriting several core components and extensive testing to ensure we hadn't broken anything else in the process. My phone lit up again at 2:07 a.m. This time it was Marcus Harrington, the CEO himself. Kate, Stephanie tells me you're still there working on the system. Just wanted to personally thank you for your dedication. This Pentagon deal means everything to Tech Fusion. We're all counting on you. A warm feeling of pride spread through my chest. In 7 years, I had spoken directly with Marcus fewer than a dozen times. He was the visionary who had built Tech Fusion from a small security consulting firm into a $300 million enterprise with government contracts and Fortune 500 clients. His acknowledgement felt like validation for all those late nights and missed weekends. At 2:32 a.m., Stephanie Wilson, the VP of Operations, and my direct supervisor called. Kate, you're a lifesaver. The board is meeting before the Pentagon presentation tomorrow to finalize the leadership restructuring. Your promotion is the first item on the agenda. Just get that system working and your new office will be waiting. I won't let you down, I promised, renewed energy coursing through me despite the late hour. I called my sister Natalie during a compilation cycle. Despite the hour, she picked up on the third ring. Kate, is everything okay? Her voice was thick with sleep. Everything's great, actually. I'm still at the office fixing a critical issue, but Stephanie just confirmed my promotion is happening tomorrow after the Pentagon meeting. That's amazing, though I'm not surprised. You've earned this, Kate. Remember when LogicSphere tried to poach you last year with that ridiculous offer? I did remember. LogicSphere, one of our competitors, had approached me with a compensation package nearly double my current salary. I had turned them down out of loyalty to Tech Fusion, believing my dedication would eventually be recognized and rewarded. This promotion means more than just the money, I told Natalie. It means they see me. All these years of keeping my head down and letting my work speak for itself are finally paying off. Well, it's about time. Maybe now you can actually use some of your vacation days. When was the last time you came to visit me in Chicago? The guilt was familiar. I had missed Thanksgiving last year due to a client emergency. I had missed her birthday the year before for the same reason. My personal life had taken a back seat to my career for so long that it sometimes felt like I didn't have one at all. I promise I'll visit soon. The promotion comes with an actual team, which means I can delegate when things get crazy. I'm holding you to that, Natalie said, yawning. Now go save the day so you can get that corner office. The next few hours blurred together in a haze of code testing and strong coffee from the vending machine. At 5:45 a.m., I identified the last critical bug. By 6:30 a.m., all system tests were passing, and the demo was running smoothly again. I leaned back in my chair, exhaustion and triumph washing over me in equal measure. I had done it. The system was stable, the presentation would proceed as planned, and my future at Tech Fusion was secure. I allowed myself a rare moment of pride as I imagined walking into my new office tomorrow, director plaque gleaming on the door. I had no idea that in less than 2 hours everything would change. After a quick trip home to shower and change into my presentation outfit, I returned to the office at 7:45 a.m. Despite only 90 minutes of sleep, adrenaline kept me alert as I organized the materials for the Pentagon meeting. The conference room needed to be perfect. Demo stations set up, technical documentation prepared, presentation slides loaded and tested. Thomas from the infrastructure team arrived early to help. Systems back up and running smoothly, I told him, suppressing a yawn. Had to rewrite the entire authentication sequence, but it's actually more secure now. You're a miracle worker, Kate Thomas said, setting up his laptop. Stephanie was telling everyone yesterday that this presentation is your baby. She's been singing your praises to anyone who will listen. That was reassuring to hear. Stephanie had been my strongest advocate in upper management, consistently pushing for my advancement. With her support and my technical accomplishments, the director position was all but guaranteed. At precisely 8:04 a.m., my phone buzzed with a message from Marcus's executive assistant. Emergency senior staff meeting in Marcus's office immediately. Wonder what that's about, Thomas said, noticing my frown. Probably last-minute prep for the Pentagon team. I'll be right back. I made my way to the executive floor where several other senior staff members were already gathering in the large glass-walled office. Marcus stood at the head of the table looking immaculate in a tailored suit despite the early hour. Beside him was a young woman I didn't recognize, perhaps in her mid-20s with perfectly styled blonde hair and a confident smile. Good, you're all here, Marcus said, his voice, carrying the practiced authority that had helped him build Tech Fusion. Before the Pentagon delegation arrives, I wanted to introduce you to someone and announce a strategic decision regarding today's presentation. He placed his hand on the young woman's shoulder. This is my daughter, Brittany Harrington. She's recently graduated with her MBA from Wharton and has joined our executive training program. Murmurs of greeting filled the room. I smiled, politely confused about why this introduction warranted an emergency meeting 90 minutes before our most important presentation of the year. As you all know, Marcus continued, the Pentagon contract represents a significant opportunity for Tech Fusion. After careful consideration, I've decided that Brittany will lead the presentation and serve as the primary point of contact for the Pentagon team moving forward. The room went silent. I felt as though the floor had suddenly disappeared beneath my feet. Katherine has done excellent work on the technical side. Marcus nodded in my direction, but Brittany brings the kind of executive presence and communication skills that will resonate with military leadership. The board members around the table nodded in agreement. Harold Winters, the oldest board member, smiled broadly. Brilliant move, Marcus. No offense to Katherine, but these military types respond to a certain kind of personality. Brittany has that natural charisma that will really sell our capabilities. Stephanie, who had been my champion just hours ago, wouldn't meet my eyes. Brittany does have excellent presentation skills, she agreed quietly. Katherine. Marcus turned to me, his expression sympathetic, but firm. You'll brief Brittany on all the technical details and be available during the meeting to answer any technical questions, but we need you to stay in the background. You're brilliant with systems, but you're too quiet for this kind of high-level client interaction. The Pentagon needs to see confidence and authority. Too quiet. The words echoed in my head as I struggled to maintain my professional composure. I had worked on this system for 18 months. I had stayed all night fixing critical bugs that could have derailed the entire presentation, I knew every line of code, every security feature, every potential question the Pentagon team might ask. And I was being sidelined because I was too quiet. Of course, I managed to say my voice steadier than I felt. I'm happy to brief Brittany on the system details. Excellent, Marcus beamed. Brittany, Katherine will get you up to speed on everything technical. The rest of you we meet in the main conference room at 9:30 a.m. to greet our guests. As the meeting dispersed, I stood frozen, trying to process what had just happened. My promotion, which had seemed so certain just hours ago, had vanished. Instead of leading the presentation I had worked 18 months to prepare, I would be briefing the CEO's daughter who likely knew nothing about cybersecurity systems. Katherine Stephanie approached, her voice low. I know this isn't what we discussed, but Marcus made the decision this morning. Try to see the bigger picture. If Brittany helps us land this contract, there will be other opportunities for advancement. I nodded, mechanically, words failing me. The bigger picture was perfectly clear. Technical expertise and dedication meant nothing compared to executive presence and the right last name. Brittany approached with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Let's grab a coffee and you can catch me up on all the boring technical stuff. I have about 45 minutes before I need to get ready for the real meeting. Boring technical stuff. The system I had poured my heart and soul into for a year and a half, reduced to boring technical stuff to be endured for 45 minutes. I followed her toward the break room, feeling the weight of every sleepless hour pressing down on my shoulders. My promotion was gone. My moment of recognition snatched away at 8:04 a.m. on what should have been the proudest day of my career. And I had no idea that the worst was yet to come. So, give me the basics, Brittany said, stirring 3 packets of sugar into her latte as we sat in the small conference room adjacent to where the Pentagon meeting would take place. She hadn't bothered to bring a notebook or open a laptop. Just the highlights. What exactly are we selling them today? I took a deep breath and opened my presentation materials. We're proposing an integrated cybersecurity platform called Secure Defend that will protect classified military communications across multiple security levels while allowing authorized information sharing between branches. Brittany nodded impatiently. Right, cybersecurity, got it. But what's our angle? What's the sexy selling point? The sexy selling point, I repeated slowly, is that our system is the only one that provides both quantum-resistant encryption and real-time threat detection with a false positive rate of less than 0.001%. We've developed a proprietary authentication protocol that— Whoa, too technical, Brittany interrupted, checking her phone. I don't need all that. Just tell me what makes us better than the competition in simple terms. Our system is more secure and more accurate. I simplified, struggling to hide my frustration. But the Pentagon team will want technical details. General Williams has a background in cryptography, and Colonel Jensen leads their cybersecurity division. They'll ask specific questions about our implementation. Let me worry about handling the clients, Brittany said dismissively. Dad says they're looking for confidence more than technical jargon. Now show me the demo so I know which buttons to press. Thomas entered the room with the demo laptop. His eyes darted between Brittany and me, sensing the tension. Kate, is everything okay? He asked quietly. Brittany will be leading the Pentagon presentation. I explained, my voice carefully neutral. I'm briefing her on the system now. Thomas's eyebrows shot up, but the secure defense system is incredibly complex. The demo requires specific steps to showcase the security features properly. I'm a quick study, Brittany said, with a wave of her hand. Just show me what to click and when. I opened the demo environment and began explaining the sequence. The authentication demonstration is particularly sensitive. You need to follow these exact steps, in this order, or the system will lock down as a security precaution. Brittany mumbled, typing something on her phone. Brittany, this is really important, I insisted. If you trigger the security lockdown during the presentation, we won't be able to recover without a complete system restart, which takes 15 minutes. I said I got it, she snapped, finally looking up. Click the blue button, then the password thing, then show the dashboard. It's not rocket science. Thomas and I exchanged alarmed glances. It's actually a bit more involved than that, he tried. The authentication requires a specific sequence of— Look, Brittany cut him off. I appreciate you two trying to help, but I've got this. Dad wouldn't have put me in charge if he didn't think I could handle it. I've been preparing for executive leadership my entire life, while you two have been hiding behind your computers. The casual cruelty of her dismissal left me momentarily speechless. Thomas's face flushed with anger, but he remained professional. Katherine spent all night fixing critical bugs in this system, he said quietly. Without her work, there wouldn't be a working demo to present today. And I'm sure she'll get a nice bonus or whatever, Brittany replied, standing up. I need to touch up my makeup before the Pentagon people arrive. Just leave the demo instructions, and I'll review them. As she walked toward the door, she paused and turned back. Oh, and I'll need you both to stay close during the meeting in case there are technical questions, but don't speak unless I specifically ask you to. Dad says too many voices confuse the client. After she left, Thomas exploded. This is insane. She doesn't understand the first thing about the system. There's no way she can successfully demonstrate it without your guidance. Apparently that doesn't matter, I said, the reality of the situation sinking in deeper. What matters is executive presence and not being too quiet. We should talk to Stephanie, Thomas suggested. She knows how critical your role is. Stephanie already sided with Marcus in the meeting. There's nothing we can do. Through the glass walls, I could see Brittany in Marcus's office gesturing animatedly. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but her body language exuded confidence. Marcus nodded approvingly, placing a hand on her shoulder. As they walked past the conference room where Thomas and I were still sitting, I overheard Brittany say, "Don't worry, Dad. Personality sells better than technical details any day. These military guys will love me." Marcus laughed. "That's my girl. That quiet Katherine is brilliant with systems, but she could never command a room like you can." Their voices faded as they continued down the hallway, unaware or unconcerned that I had heard every word. Thomas placed a hand on my shoulder. "Kate, I'm so sorry. This isn't right." "No, it isn't," I agreed, gathering my materials. "But it's happening anyway." We spent the next 30 minutes trying to simplify the demo instructions to a level Brittany might actually follow. I created a one-page guide with screenshots and clear warnings about the critical steps. Thomas volunteered to sit in the meeting to provide backup if needed. At 9:45 a.m., the Pentagon delegation arrived. Through the glass walls, I could see General Williams, Colonel Jensen, and 4 other military personnel being greeted by Marcus and the executive team. Brittany stood front and center, shaking hands confidently and laughing at something the general said. At 9:55 a.m., the meeting participants began filing into the main conference room. Stephanie caught my eye and motioned for me to wait outside. Brittany swept past without acknowledgement, clutching the simplified demo guide I had prepared. Thomas gave me a sympathetic look as he entered the room with his laptop. The glass doors closed, and I was left standing in the hallway watching through the windows as the presentation for my system began without me. I stood outside the conference room, a technical expert relegated to hallway observer status for the most important presentation of my career. Through the glass, I watched as Marcus introduced the Tech Fusion team with Brittany prominently positioned at his right hand. I couldn't hear the words, but his body language spoke volumes, the proud father showcasing his daughter to important clients. The Pentagon team looked impressive and serious. General Williams, with his rows of service medals and ramrod straight posture, nodded politely during introductions. Colonel Jensen, who I knew had a doctorate in computer science before joining the military, was already flipping through our technical documentation with a furrowed brow. Brittany began her portion of the presentation with animated confidence, gesturing broadly as she paced before the projected slides. From a distance, she certainly looked the part of an executive, her tailored suit and confident demeanor creating the image of authority that Marcus had deemed so important. But 10 minutes in, I noticed the first signs of trouble. Colonel Jensen leaned forward, asking what appeared to be a specific question. Brittany's smile faltered momentarily before she launched into what seemed like a rehearsed response. The colonel frowned, clearly unsatisfied, and made a note on his pad. I could see Thomas shifting uncomfortably in his seat at the back of the room. He glanced toward me through the glass, his expression confirming my fears the technical questions were already proving challenging for Brittany. My phone vibrated with a text from Thomas. "She just called our quantum encryption a special code that not even supercomputers can break. Jensen looks physically pained." I closed my eyes, briefly imagining the cringe-inducing oversimplifications happening inside. The Pentagon team didn't want dumbed-down explanations. They were sophisticated buyers with deep technical knowledge. They needed precise explanations of our security architecture, not sales buzzwords. 20 minutes into the presentation, Brittany reached the system demonstration portion. I pressed closer to the glass tension coiling in my stomach. The demo required careful navigation through the authentication sequence I had spent months perfecting and had just fixed hours ago. Thomas texted again, She's skipping steps. System showing warning indicators. I immediately texted back. Tell her to follow the guide exactly. One wrong move will trigger security lockdown. I watched Thomas try to subtly get Brittany's attention, but she was in full performance mode, confidently clicking through screens while maintaining eye contact with General Williams. She completely ignored Thomas's attempts to intervene. Through the glass, I could see the moment it happened. The screen behind Brittany flashed red, and the dreaded security lockdown message appeared in bold letters. The demonstration had failed exactly as I had feared. Brittany faltered mid-sentence, turning to look at the error message with obvious confusion. She clicked frantically, trying to recover, but each attempt only displayed additional security warnings. The Pentagon officials exchanged glances, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. I texted Thomas urgently. System needs full restart. 15-minute minimum. Tell her to move to slideshow while you work on recovery. But Brittany, clearly flustered but attempting to maintain her composure, was already making things worse. Just a minor glitch, I could see her saying, continuing to click randomly through the interface, triggering more security alerts. Colonel Jensen leaned forward, pointing at the screen and asking what appeared to be a direct technical question. Brittany's confident facade cracked visibly as she struggled to provide an answer. I couldn't stand it anymore. Despite explicit instructions to stay outside, I opened the conference room door and stepped inside. I apologize for the interruption, I said calmly, walking toward the demonstration station. We're experiencing a known security feature. The system is designed to lock down when authentication steps are performed out of sequence, which is actually one of its key protections against unauthorized access attempts. The relief on Thomas's face was palpable. The Pentagon officials turned their attention to me, while Brittany stared with a mixture of anger and panic. Katherine, we've got this under control, Marcus interjected sharply. Perhaps you could wait outside as discussed. But Colonel Jensen had already engaged with me directly. You're saying this lockdown is an intentional security feature, not a system failure. Exactly, Colonel, I confirmed. The system requires specific authentication patterns to prevent brute force attacks. I can demonstrate the proper sequence once we complete the 15-minute security reset, or I can show you the underlying architecture while we wait. I'd like to see the architecture, Colonel Jensen said, firmly ignoring Marcus's obvious discomfort. For the next 10 minutes, I walked the Pentagon team through the security infrastructure I had designed, answering their increasingly technical questions with the depth and precision they clearly wanted. General Williams nodded with growing approval, while Colonel Jensen took detailed notes. Brittany had retreated to stand beside her father, both of them watching with tight expressions as I reclaimed the presentation they had taken from me. I felt a moment of vindication, quickly followed by concern. I wasn't following Marcus's directive, and there would likely be consequences. At precisely 10:17 a.m., my explanation was interrupted by General Williams getting to his feet. The room fell silent as the commanding officer straightened his uniform jacket. Thank you for your time today, he said formally. Unfortunately, we've seen enough to make our determination. Marcus stepped forward quickly. General, if you'll allow us to complete the demonstration once the system resets. That won't be necessary, Mr. Harrington, the general replied coolly. We came today expecting to see a finished, battle-ready system presented by the technical experts who built it. Instead, we've witnessed a sales pitch from someone unfamiliar with the technology, followed by a security failure that, intentional or not, raises significant concerns. Colonel Jensen stood as well. The documentation suggested a much more mature implementation than what we've seen demonstrated. We'll be exploring other options for this contract. And just like that, it was over. The Pentagon team gathered their materials and filed out of the conference room, Marcus and Stephanie hurrying after them with desperate attempts to salvage the situation. In the sudden quiet of the abandoned presentation, Brittany turned to me, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You sabotaged me, she hissed. You could have properly prepared me instead of showing me up. I tried to prepare you, I replied evenly. You didn't listen. Dad will hear about this, she threatened, storming out of the room. Thomas approached slowly, his expression grim. $700 million, he said quietly, gone in less than an hour. I nodded, the reality sinking in. My career at Tech Fusion was effectively over. I had disobeyed a direct order from the CEO and embarrassed his daughter in front of important clients. The fact that I had been right would make no difference. As if on cue, Marcus's executive assistant appeared at the door. Catherine Marcus wants to see you in his office immediately." The walk to the executive floor felt like a funeral march. Employees whispered as I passed news of the failed presentation already spreading throughout the company. In Marcus's office, I found him standing behind his desk, his face a mask of barely controlled fury. "You directly undermined my daughter and this company," he said without preamble. "After I explicitly told you to stay in the background, you inserted yourself into the presentation and highlighted Brittany's lack of technical knowledge." "The presentation was failing," I said quietly. "I was trying to salvage what I could of the deal." "The deal is gone," Marcus shouted, slamming his hand on the desk. $700 million vanished because you couldn't follow simple instructions and properly prepare Brittany for the technical aspects. The injustice of his accusation struck me speechless. I had spent all night saving the system. I had tried to prepare Brittany with simplified instructions that she had ignored. I had been removed from my own presentation because I was too quiet. "I think it's best if you clear out your desk today," Marcus continued, his voice cold. "Your technical skills are valuable, but your inability to be a team player makes you a liability to this company." "A team player," I repeated numbly. Is that what Brittany was being when she dismissed everything? Thomas and I tried to tell her about the system. "You're fired," Katherine Marcus said flatly. "Security will escort you to collect your belongings." As the reality of his words sank and a strange calm settled over me. 7 years of loyalty and exceptional work erased in a single morning because I had tried to save a presentation that should have been mine to begin with. "Understood," I said, simply turning to leave. And Katherine Marcus called after me. "Your termination includes a non-disparagement clause. Anything you say about Tech Fusion or today's events will result in immediate legal action." I nodded once and walked out 7 years of my career, ending at precisely 10:43 a.m. The security guard assigned to oversee my departure was Jim, who had checked my badge every morning for the past 7 years. The embarrassment on his face spoke volumes as he followed me to my desk. "This isn't right, Miss Wells," he said quietly as I began gathering my personal items. "Everyone knows you're the backbone of the technical team." "Thanks, Jim," I replied carefully, wrapping the small cactus my sister had given me when I was promoted to senior systems architect. But apparently being the backbone isn't enough if you don't have the right last name. My desk, which had been my second home for 7 years, yielded surprisingly few personal items. A coffee mug from an industry conference, a framed photo of Natalie and me at her college graduation, a small collection of technical books. My life at Tech Fusion fit neatly into a single cardboard box. As I packed, colleagues walked past with averted eyes, none wanting to be associated with the person who had just been publicly fired. Only Thomas approached directly, slipping a USB drive into my hand, while Jim was distracted by a phone call. "Your work," he whispered. "All your code documentation system designs. They belong to you as much as the company." I hesitated, knowing that accepting company data could violate my exit agreement, but Thomas pressed it firmly into my palm. "Take it. After what they did to you, you deserve to have a record of your achievements." I slipped the drive into my purse with a grateful nod. "Be careful, Thomas. They'll be looking for someone to blame after I'm gone." "Half the team is already updating their resumes," he replied grimly. "This place won't survive long with leadership like that." My phone buzzed with a text from Natalie. "How did the big presentation go? Director Catherine Wells has a nice ring to it." I couldn't bring myself to respond yet. How could I explain that not only had I lost the promotion, but I had lost my entire job in the span of a single morning? Jim escorted me to my car in the parking garage, apologizing again for the protocol. "If it helps, Miss Wells, the security team is all on your side. We know who really keeps this place running." "Thanks, Jim. Take care of yourself." The drive home passed in a blur of shock and disbelief. 7 years of my life devoted to Tech Fusion, countless weekends sacrificed, holidays missed, relationships put on hold. All ended in a moment of breathtaking injustice. When I finally parked outside my apartment, I called Natalie. "Kate, I've been waiting to hear about your big day. How's the new director of systems architecture?" "Fired," I said flatly. "I was fired, Nat." "What? That's impossible. What happened?" The whole story poured out of me, from the all-night system rescue to Marcus's daughter taking over my presentation to the catastrophic failure and my ultimate dismissal. "Those absolute bastards," Natalie fumed when I finished. "After everything you've done for that company, After you stayed all night fixing their system, they replace you with the CEO's daughter, who doesn't know the first thing about technology, and then they fire you when it all falls apart. That's not just unfair, it's lawsuit territory. The severance includes a non-disparagement clause and a waiver of claims, I explained. If I want the 3 months' pay, I have to sign away my right to sue them. Of course they'd do that, Natalie said bitterly. They know they're in the wrong. I sank onto my couch, the full weight of the day finally hitting me. 7 years, Nat. 7 years of my life devoted to that company. I turned down other offers because I believed in loyalty and thought it would be rewarded. Corporate loyalty is a one-way street, Kate. You've always given more than you got back. She was right, and the realization was both painful and illuminating. How many times had I accepted additional responsibilities without additional compensation? How many vacations had I canceled for urgent projects? How many times had I watched male colleagues with less experience and fewer technical skills get promoted ahead of me? The signs were always there, I admitted. I just didn't want to see them. What did Stephanie say about all this? I thought she was your advocate. She sided with Marcus immediately. Turns out her advocacy only extended as far as it was convenient. I spent the rest of the day alternating between numbness and anger, replaying the events in my mind, and wondering what I could have done differently. Should I have refused to brief Brittany? Should I have stayed silent during the failed demonstration? Would any choice have resulted in a different outcome? By evening, I was restless and needed perspective from someone who wasn't family. I called Elizabeth, a former Tech Fusion colleague who had left the company a year earlier after 6 years in the engineering department. Kate, this is unexpected. Everything okay? Not really. I was fired today. What, you were, their star engineer? What happened? I gave her the condensed version, and her bitter laugh told me she wasn't surprised. Classic Tech Fusion, she said. The same thing happened in the biotech division last year. The VP's son, with a fresh MBA, was given control of a project the team had been working on for 3 years. It crashed and burned spectacularly, and they fired the technical lead for not providing adequate support. So, this is a pattern, I said, feeling a strange relief that it wasn't just me. Kate, leaving Tech Fusion was the best career decision I ever made. I'm making 30% more at Neurologic, working fewer hours, and my technical expertise is actually valued. When I propose solutions, people listen because of my experience, not my executive presence or family connections. I can't even think about job hunting yet, I admitted. I'm still processing the fact that 7 years of my life ended in a single morning. Take a few days to be angry, Elizabeth advised. You've earned that, but then start reaching out to your network. Your reputation in the industry is stellar, Kate. Companies will be lining up to hire you once word gets out that you're available. After we hung up, I opened my laptop, and for the first time in 7 years, updated my resume. With each accomplishment, I added each system I had designed, each crisis I had averted. My anger transformed gradually into something else: determination. Tech Fusion had taken my job, but they couldn't take my skills or my knowledge. And contrary to what Marcus Harrington believed, being too quiet didn't mean I lacked strength or resolve. It was time to show the industry exactly what Katherine Wells was capable of. 2 weeks after my abrupt departure from Tech Fusion, I sat in the lobby of Quantum Secure, nervously adjusting my portfolio. As Tech Fusion's biggest competitor in the government cybersecurity space, Quantum had been trying to recruit me for years. I had always declined out of loyalty to Tech Fusion, a decision that now seemed laughably naive. My phone buzzed with a news alert: Tech Fusion Global TFG shares down 12% following Pentagon contract loss. I clicked the link, scanning the financial article with growing interest. Industry sources report that Tech Fusion's demonstration of their Secure Defend platform suffered catastrophic failures during a presentation to Pentagon officials, resulting in the immediate termination of contract negotiations. The $700 million deal, which investors had already factored into Tech Fusion's valuation, would have been the company's largest government contract to date. A small, vindicated smile crossed my face. The market was responding to Tech Fusion's failure, and Marcus Harrington was undoubtedly feeling the pressure from shareholders. My phone rang. It was Thomas. "Have you seen the stock price?" he asked without preamble. "Just now. Down 12% in a single day. That's gotta hurt." "It's chaos here, Kate. After you left, Brittany told everyone the system failed because you sabotaged it before the presentation. But then, 3 more demos crashed, in exactly the same way, because no one knows how to properly navigate the authentication sequence. Let me guess, Brittany is still leading the presentations. Not anymore. She's been quietly moved to special projects, whatever that means, but the damage is done. The Pentagon has already reached out to 2 other vendors. Rumor has it, Quantum Secure is at the top of their list. I glanced around the sleek lobby of the company where I was about to interview. That's interesting timing. Are you at Quantum now? Thomas asked, lowering his voice. Half the engineering team has quit Kate. Stephanie is desperately trying to hold things together, but without you, no one fully understands the secure defend architecture. They should have thought of that before firing the person who designed it, I replied, my voice cooler than I intended. I don't blame you for being bitter. Listen, I'm submitting my resignation today. Would you mind putting in a good word for me at Quantum? Of course, they're building a whole team for the Pentagon rebid. After hanging up, I reflected on how quickly fortunes could change. 2 weeks ago, I had been devastated, my career seemingly in ruins. Now I was interviewing with Tech Fusion's largest competitor while my former company spiraled into crisis. Miss Wells, the receptionist approached. Miss Franklin will see you now. Diana Franklin, Quantum Secure's VP of Engineering, greeted me with a firm handshake in her corner office overlooking the city. Unlike the ostentatious executive floor at Tech Fusion, her space was practical, and clearly that of a working engineer, with whiteboards covered in system diagrams and bookshelves filled with technical references. Katherine, thank you for finally accepting our invitation, Diana said, gesturing for me to sit. Though I have to say I wish the circumstances were different. What happened at Tech Fusion was unprofessional and short-sighted. I blinked in surprise. You know about that? The technical community isn't that large, especially in our specialization. Word travels fast when a company fires their lead architect right after losing a major contract. She leaned forward. To be blunt, their loss is potentially our gain. We've been trying to recruit you for 3 years. The interview that followed was unlike any I had experienced before. Instead of generic questions about my greatest weaknesses, or where I saw myself in 5 years, Diana engaged me in a detailed technical discussion about encryption protocols and system architecture. She asked thoughtful questions and actually listened to my answers, occasionally making notes or suggesting alternative approaches. Your reputation for technical excellence is well deserved, she said, after nearly an hour of discussion. But I'm equally impressed by your commitment to system integrity. It would have been easier to stay quiet during that Pentagon presentation, but you put the quality of the work above politics. That decision got me fired, I pointed out. And that says everything about Tech Fusion's values and nothing about your professional judgment. Diana closed her notebook. Katherine, I'll be direct. We're assembling a team to bid on the Pentagon contract that Tech Fusion just lost. We want you to lead that team as our new Director of Security Architecture. The position title was almost identical to the one I had been promised at Tech Fusion. The salary Diana mentioned was 20% higher than what I had been making, with a substantial signing bonus and equity options. I'm flattered by the offer, I said carefully, but I should be transparent about something. While I intimately understand the Pentagon's requirements from my work at Tech Fusion, I won't share proprietary information or violate any confidentiality agreements. Diana's approving nod told me this was exactly the right answer. I wouldn't expect or want you to. Ethics matter at Quantum. We want to win the contract based on superior technology and expertise, not corporate espionage. Your knowledge of government security requirements and system architecture principles is valuable enough without crossing any ethical lines. As she outlined the role in more detail, I felt a growing sense of excitement. This wasn't just a job offer. It was an opportunity to build something from the ground up, with a team of my own and leadership that actually valued technical expertise. The position includes a team of 8 senior engineers to start, with budget to expand as needed, Diana explained. You would report directly to me with a seat on the Technical Leadership Committee. And yes, you would personally lead presentations to key clients, including the Pentagon. You're not concerned that I'm too quiet for client interactions? I asked, unable to keep a hint of bitterness from my voice. Diana's expression was puzzled. Too quiet, Katherine, thoughtful precision is exactly what sophisticated clients like the Pentagon want from their technical leaders. They don't need a sales pitch. They need someone who understands the technology deeply and can explain it clearly. Your communication style is an asset, not a liability. The validation of hearing my technical communication style described as an asset brought an unexpected lump to my throat. For years I had been told that my careful, precise approach was a weakness to be overcome, not a strength to be leveraged. "I'd like some time to consider the offer," I said professionally, though in my heart the decision was already made. "Of course, take the weekend to think it over." Diana stood and extended her hand. "But Katherine, just so you know, the team I'm building will include several other former Tech Fusion engineers who left after your departure. They specifically asked if you would be leading the project. Your colleagues respect your technical leadership, even if Tech Fusion's executives failed to appreciate it." As I drove home from the interview, my phone rang through my car speakers. It was Natalie. "How did it go?" she asked eagerly. "They offered me the director position on the spot," I told her, still processing the rapid turn of events, "with a team of my own and a seat on the technical leadership committee." "Kate, that's amazing. Did you accept?" "I said I'd think about it over the weekend, but yes, I'm going to accept. It feels right, Nat. The VP of Engineering actually values technical expertise over executive presence, whatever that means." "It means she's smart enough to recognize real talent," Natalie said firmly. "I'm so proud of you, Kate. You didn't let one setback define you." That evening, as I prepared to email Diana my formal acceptance, Thomas called again. "I submitted my resignation today," he said, his voice lighter than it had been in weeks. And I wasn't alone. 4 more senior engineers quit, all citing the company's handling of the Pentagon presentation and your firing as the final straw. "That's quite an exodus," I observed. "How did management react?" Stephanie looked like she was about to have a breakdown. "Marcus is still blaming everyone but himself and Brittany. The board is calling for an emergency meeting to discuss leadership changes." "And the Pentagon contract?" Thomas laughed, completely dead. Colonel Jensen apparently told the procurement office that Tech Fusion demonstrated fundamental organizational incompetence during the presentation. Those words are being whispered all over the office. After we hung up, I sent my acceptance email to Diana, confirming my start date for the following Monday. Then I opened a bottle of wine I had been saving for a special occasion and toasted my new beginning. The company that had discarded me was now in crisis while I was about to start a position that actually valued my skills and expertise. It wasn't just professional vindication. It was the universe restoring balance in the most satisfying way possible. 3 months later, I would look back on my firing as the best thing that ever happened to my career. "Katherine, the Pentagon team will be here in 30 minutes. Are you ready?" I looked up from my workstation to see Diana standing in the doorway of my office at Quantum Secure, 3 months into my new role as Director of Security Architecture. "Just reviewing the final demonstration sequence," I replied, closing the testing environment. "The team has done incredible work on the authentication module. It's more secure and more intuitive than anything I've developed before." "That's what happens when you empower talented engineers instead of micromanaging them," Diana said with a smile. "Your leadership style has transformed this department, Katherine. People feel valued and heard." The past 3 months had been the most professionally fulfilling of my career. My team of 12 engineers, including Thomas and several other former Tech Fusion colleagues, had developed a next-generation security platform that exceeded even my ambitious specifications. More importantly, we had done it in an environment where technical excellence was celebrated rather than subordinated to politics and personalities. "How are you feeling about presenting today?" Diana asked. "Prepared," I said honestly. "We've tested every aspect of the system and everyone on the team understands their role in the demonstration." Unlike my experience at Tech Fusion, my presentation style was viewed as an asset at Quantum. My precise, technically accurate explanations were appreciated by clients who wanted substance over flash. Diana had even enrolled me in a technical leadership program that helped me leverage my natural communication style rather than trying to transform me into someone I wasn't. As we walked to the conference room for a final preparation session, Diana updated me on industry news. Tech Fusion announced another round of layoffs yesterday. Their stock is down 40% since the Pentagon contract fell through. I saw that. I nodded. Stephanie Wilson resigned last week. That's the 3rd executive departure in 2 months. Marcus Harrington is hanging on by a thread. The board has stripped him of most operational control, but they're keeping him as the public face for now to avoid further stock devaluation. And Brittany, I couldn't help asking. Diana smiled. Apparently she's been pursuing other opportunities since last month. Turns out nepotism only goes so far when you've helped tank a $300 million company. I took no joy in Tech Fusion's struggles. Too many good people still worked there, people who had nothing to do with the decisions that led to my firing. But there was a certain poetic justice in seeing the consequences of poor leadership play out so dramatically. As my team gathered for final preparations, I felt a surge of pride. These were genuinely brilliant engineers who had chosen to follow me to Quantum. Their trust was a responsibility I took seriously. Everyone clear on the demonstration sequence, I asked. Thomas, now my lead systems engineer, nodded. Crystal clear, Kate. We've run through it 20 times without a single glitch. And everyone knows their specific areas of expertise for questions, I continued. Unlike the Tech Fusion approach of having a single presenter, I had prepared each team member to address questions in their area of specialization, showcasing the depth of our collective knowledge. We're ready, Alexis, my authentication specialist confirmed. This system sells itself, Kate. We just need to explain it clearly. Which is exactly what you do best, Thomas added with a grin. At precisely 10:00 a.m., the Quantum Secure receptionist led the Pentagon delegation into our main conference room. I recognized General Williams and Colonel Jensen immediately, along with several of the same officials who had walked out of the Tech Fusion presentation 3 months earlier. Welcome to Quantum Secure, I greeted them professionally. I'm Katherine Wells, Director of Security Architecture. Some of you may remember me from my previous role at Tech Fusion, though I'm now leading development here at Quantum. Colonel Jensen's eyes widened in recognition. Miss Wells, you were the engineer who tried to salvage that presentation a few months ago. The very same, I acknowledged with a small smile. Today I think you'll find our demonstration significantly more successful. What followed was the most effective technical presentation of my career. Each member of my team smoothly explained their component of the system, answering detailed questions with confidence and precision. The demonstration ran flawlessly, with each security feature performing exactly as designed. When we reached the authentication module, I nodded to Thomas, who executed the sequence perfectly. As you can see, I explained, our system includes the quantum-resistant encryption and multi-factor authentication that the Pentagon requirements specified, but we've added an adaptive security layer that continuously evaluates access patterns for anomalies. Colonel Jensen leaned forward with interest. That addresses one of our key concerns about evolving threat models. How does the system handle false positives? An excellent question, I said, signaling Alexis to explain the machine learning algorithms she had developed specifically for that purpose. By the end of the 2-hour presentation, the energy in the room was palpably different from the Tech Fusion debacle. The Pentagon officials were engaged and asking sophisticated follow-up questions that indicated genuine interest. General Williams stood as we concluded. Miss Wells, this is precisely the kind of thoughtful, technically sound presentation we expected 3 months ago. Your team clearly understands both the technology and our specific security requirements. Thank you, General, I replied. We've designed this system from the ground up with military-grade security as our primary consideration. One question, Colonel Jensen added. The original contract was valued at $700 million. Your proposal comes in at $850 million. Can you justify the difference? Without hesitation, I outlined the additional security features and support services we had included, explaining how each addition addressed specific vulnerabilities in conventional systems. The colonel nodded with growing approval as I walked him through the technical rationale. After the Pentagon team departed, Diana pulled me aside, her expression excited. Katherine, that was extraordinary. The general told me on the way out that Quantum is now their preferred vendor for the contract. The additional budget has already been approved. The news took a moment to sink in. My team gathered around, sensing the positive outcome. We did it, Thomas asked. We did it, I confirmed, unable to suppress a smile. The Pentagon was impressed with both the system and our presentation. Diana says we're the preferred vendor. The celebration that followed was joyful but professional, exactly reflecting the culture we had built in our department. As my team dispersed to return to their projects, Diana stayed behind. This isn't just a business victory, Katherine. It's a validation of everything you stand for as a technical leader. You built this team from the ground up, earned their trust and respect, and delivered a system that exceeds expectations, all without changing who you are. Her words struck a deep chord. At Tech Fusion, I had constantly received the message that my technical focus and measured communication style were limitations to be overcome. Here at Quantum, those same qualities were recognized as strengths. That evening, I left the office early to meet Natalie, who had flown in to visit for the weekend. To my brilliant sister, who turned a career disaster into a triumph, she toasted, raising her glass in the restaurant we had chosen to celebrate. "It still doesn't feel quite real," I admitted. 3 months ago, I was cleaning out my desk with a security guard watching over me. Today, I presented to the Pentagon as a director, and they're ready to award us an $850 million contract. "Because you refused to let one company's warped values define your worth," Natalie said firmly. "You didn't try to become someone else to fit their broken system. You found a place that values who you actually are." Later that week, I attended an industry conference where I unexpectedly encountered Brittany Harrington at the networking reception. She looked momentarily panicked when she saw me, then smoothed her expression into a professional mask. "Katherine," she acknowledged stiffly, "I heard you landed at Quantum." "I did," I confirmed, keeping my tone neutral. "Are you still with Tech Fusion?" A flash of embarrassment crossed her face. "I'm exploring new opportunities. The Director of Special Projects role wasn't quite the right fit." I could have responded with sarcasm or spite, reminding her of how her unearned promotion had contributed to both our fates. Instead, I found myself feeling an unexpected compassion. Brittany was as much a product of her father's flawed leadership as anyone. "The right fit makes all the difference," I said simply. "I hope you find yours." As I walked away, I realized how much I had grown beyond the anger and betrayal of that day. Success truly was the best revenge, but not in the way I had initially thought. The real victory wasn't in seeing Tech Fusion struggle, or Brittany demoted. It was in finding my authentic path forward. 2 weeks later, the official announcement came. Quantum Secure had been awarded the Pentagon cybersecurity contract, now valued at $850 million. The press release specifically mentioned the technical excellence and depth of expertise demonstrated by the quantum security architecture team. As my team celebrated, I gathered them for a moment of reflection. "This victory belongs to all of us," I told them. "Each of you contributed your unique expertise and perspective. But I want you to remember something important. Technical excellence matters. Detailed knowledge matters. Being thoughtful and precise in your communication matters." I paused, making eye contact with each team member. The world will sometimes tell you that flash matters more than substance, that presence matters more than precision. Today proves that isn't true. Never let anyone convince you to be less than who you are, or to value style over substance. That evening, as I looked out from my new office window, I reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past several months. The painful betrayal at Tech Fusion had ultimately led me to a position where I could truly thrive, leading a team that valued both technical excellence and authentic communication. The lesson wasn't just professional, it was deeply personal. Being too quiet wasn't a flaw to be fixed, but a quality that in the right environment could be a tremendous strength. The real challenge wasn't changing myself to fit a broken system, but finding and creating spaces where substance was valued over style, where competence mattered more than confidence. As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed with a message from Diana. "Board meeting tomorrow. They want to discuss expanding your department and possibly creating a new CTO position. Your name is at the top of the list." I smiled, thinking of how far I had come since that fateful morning, when I was told I was too quiet for leadership. Sometimes the quietest voices have the most important things to say. And finally, I had found a place that was ready to listen. If you have ever been underestimated, overlooked, or told you need to change who you are to succeed, I hope my story gives you courage. The right place for you exists, whether you need to find it or create it yourself. Never let someone else's limited perception define your worth or potential. What is your experience with being undervalued at work? Have you ever been passed over for someone less qualified? Share your story in the comments, and if this resonated with you, please subscribe and hit the like button. Your quiet strength might be your greatest superpower, just as it turned out to be mine. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes losing what you thought you wanted leads you directly to what you truly deserve.